So welcome back to Studio King Street, Tom.
Thank you very much, Neil. It's a great pleasure to be here. The cannonball of podcasting right again.
This week on the Stirling Business Podcast, you're going to talk to us about your new book, Lights, Camera, Stirling. So that's what we're here today to talk about. So before we do that, though, why don't you just let the audience know a little bit about your background and tell them where you've come from.
Yeah, sure thing. Well, my name's Tom Christie. I'm an academic and author, occasional lecturer at Forth Valley College, where I teach on publishing practice, and in addition do lots of other things around about the area, including being secretary to the board of trustees for Forthgiving, which is the Sons of the Rock Society, their new trading name.
So you're a busy man. So you're also part of an award-winning publishing team with your sister, I believe, Julie. So why don't you tell us a little bit about that and your business, Extremis Publishing?
Yes. Well, Extremis Publishing was founded 11 years ago between my sister Julie and myself. It is an arts, media and culture non-fiction independent book company. We publish a wide range of different titles with many different authors in all sorts of different topics and subject areas. That can include travel writing, popular culture, society and history, and all sorts of different areas. So it's always been an interesting subject to be in, but never more so than it is now. I think the publishing world is changing dramatically, and I think the people who are getting the most out of it are the ones who are kind of preempting where the changes are going to be. So it's been a fascinating challenge.
So how do you operate that business day to day between yourself and Julie?
Well, we both have a very different range of skills, and the company came about because my background had been in writing and publishing. Julie had done lots of different work for many different organisations, both in the private sector and the third sector, in relation to marketing and publicity. So as a result, we kind of split the responsibilities between us. I've taken more of a lead on things like the editing and the interior design of the books. Julie is more involved in the marketing and in the sort of publicising of various titles as they come out. And both of us are involved in all sorts of different events as well. Mm-hmm. Sometimes with different authors, sometimes with books that we've written ourselves, and sometimes just to try and raise awareness of publishing and the creative arts generally.
So how many authors do you think you've worked with over the years then?
Well, lots of different ones actually. We've certainly got around 20 on the books now.
Okay.
That we've worked with. And actually the beauty of it is people that we've actually worked with on a number of different occasions who perhaps thought they only had one book in them, but in reality have had two or three. And that's the really important thing we feel about publishing, is that we want to encourage people. We want people to find their voice. And the age doesn't need to be in any way something that holds people back. Sometimes the authors that we have who are the more mature authors are the ones who have the most fascinating stories to tell, and certainly the most life experience.
Okay, so your passion for writing is very clear to those that know you, Tom. You've written over 20 books over the years yourself, some very diverse topics. Could you give the audience a little bit of a background and a bit of an insight in terms of some of those books before we specifically talk about your new book?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, my background really is quite diverse, because my first degree was in English literature. I then did a master's in British cinema history and then returned to literature to do a PhD in Scottish literature. So many of the books I've written have reflected that interest in popular culture. Some of them have been about topics such as retro gaming, digital humanities, interactive fiction, those kind of areas. But I mean, they've also encompassed various different things like modern literature, in some cases television, sometimes music. But I would say predominantly modern cinema, and looking at the stories that are told by cinema, what it can say about society and what it can say about really the people who make the films, as much as it can about the messages that those films hold. So really all different aspects of that, which continue to fascinate me. They always say, keep writing as long as you keep, being fascinated by the subjects you write about. And I'm pleased to say that I'm every bit as galvanised now as I was when I started 20 years ago.
And we did a podcast previously, around about the Christmas time, actually, to promote some of the titles that you'd written about Christmas movies and the like. So you're an all-year-round type of guy?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, Christmas films are an interesting one because I wrote a 4-volume series, as we discussed in the previous podcast, that took the history of the Christmas film from the 40s, when the modern Christmas film was kind of first established, all the way up to the late 90s, and all of the different kind of themes and sort of cultural impacts that those films have had. So yeah, I mean, that's been one particularly interesting area.
Great. Okay, so your new book, Lights, Camera, Stirling. What's this about, and what was the genesis of writing it?
Well, it's a book I've really wanted to write for a while, and because simply Stirling itself is such a fascinating place to live and work. And, one of the good things about Stirling, and one of the things that I feel most proud about as someone who lives here, is the fact that there is so much to be said about Stirling's heritage and its culture and its history. And you look around the town, you look at all these amazing different things that are going on. You look at, for instance, historic environments of Scotland, and obviously all of the history that they communicate from the castle and various other sites. You look at the Stirling Heritage Alliance, who are working all year round to make people aware of the history and culture of Stirling. And then you look at places like Maiden Stirling, which are showing you the modern aspects of culture in Stirling, with all those wonderful artisanal crafts that are there. So what I wanted to explore in this book with my sister Julie, who's my co-director at Extremis, was what it is about Stirling that makes it such a special place for filmmakers. Why, over these decades, has it continued to attract more and more filmmakers to the area? Is it the history of the place? Is it the way that Stirling doubles for other locations? So for that point of view, it was a really fascinating book to research, because there's just simply so much to say about it.
Brilliant. Okay, so Stirling is becoming better recognised, on a day-by-day basis when it comes to film and media. Obviously, with the university, they have some pretty significant programs and courses around film media. Same with Forth Valley College, and they've got a decent pedigree, I guess, in that kind of whole industry sector. But we've also heard of Stirling becoming the home of the largest, Scotland's largest film studio. What do you make of that?
Well, you're absolutely right to say that there's a fantastic pedigree in Stirling when it comes to film studies, and also the practicalities of filmmaking. Forth Valley College's Stirling campus, for instance, has a whole raft of different courses involved in all of the many different aspects of filmmaking, from sound design through to the cinematography aspects of it. It's a really fantastic range of courses that they have. And then you look at Stirling University and their film and media department, and the huge variety of different subjects that they've dealt with over the years. All these pioneering academics like Professor John Izod and all of those major figures. So from that point of view, yes, it's a terrific place to study film. It's a terrific place to make films, to have that creative drive. But also, as you rightly mentioned, the Stirling Studios. This is an enormous development for Stirling, one which is poised to create thousands of jobs over the coming years. And it's a fantastic opportunity for the whole area, because whereas this book talks about all of the different cultural impact from films that have been made really from the 40s onwards, although in actual fact you could go further back than that, if you're looking at documentary filmmaking specifically, it just goes to show that the future is bright. There will be filmmakers now who are looking at all of those major landmarks, the castle, the Wallace Monument, the Tolbooth perhaps, the Old Town Cemetery, all of those iconic landmarks, and they're going to be filled with inspiration for their own creative work. This book is very much just a starting pistol, if you like, for some of the amazing new creative talent we're going to be seeing in the years and decades ahead.
And how many films and TV programmes do we reference in this book, Tom?
Well, it was a tough one for this book, because the hardest question was what you leave out. There are so many different things in the area. So this book covers 60 of the most prominent TV and film productions. There are so many different things to talk about in so many different genres. And that was the amazing thing, the stories that were behind it, the cultural impact of them. You see films like Monty Python and the Holy Grail, which people obviously remember very fondly from the 70s, and we look at how students from Stirling University were bussed in to act as extras in the film. You see films like The Adventures of Greyfriars Bobby, the 2005 remake, and the amazing impact that that had, because it uses Stirling very extensively at the castle and the Old Time Cemetery, as a double for Edinburgh in the Victorian era. So there are all those kind of films, but there are all these new productions as well. For instance, Good Omens, the Amazon series, which filmed at the Old Time Cemetery as well. We have the 39 Steps, which not only filmed in the late 50s in the Stirlingshire area, but also in 2008, where you had the Argyle's Lodging, for instance, used as a prominent location. So Stirling has actually 78 steps.
Okay. And how do you think the film studio is going to impact the area? You talked about bringing new jobs to the area, which is fantastic, but do you see it elevating the whole kind of sector to another level again, when that comes along?
Oh, I would certainly hope so, and I would expect that to be the case, actually, because, I mean, we're very fortunate to have a local authority that sees the great benefit of creativity and artistic expression. And as a result, you only need to look, for instance, at the new Frankenstein film, the Guillermo del Toro version, which used the Wallace Monument as the inspiration for Frankenstein's laboratory tower. Now, again, that was an occasion where the council were able to work with the filmmakers to make sure that the original J.T. Rochehead Victorian plans for the Wallace Monument were made available to them as they considered their own model for the film. So as a result of that, you very much have this wonderful potential to encourage filmmakers from across the world into Stirling, to look at the amazing different range of terrain and different places across the region, but also, of course, homegrown talent. You've mentioned obviously the college and the university, and all of the potential there for young filmmakers emerging into the industry is going to give them an amazing opportunity.
So am I right in thinking they also filmed a section of the Lockerbie movie that Colin Firth a couple of years ago? Was that actually done in the Stirling area? I heard it was done at the kind of site of the studios, right? Yes, that's right. Yes, there is a scene filmed in one of the army barracks buildings, featuring Colin Firth in that area. And of course, interestingly, there were actually two Lockerbie dramas filmed around the same time. One of them was filmed at the Pathfoot building on the Stirling University campus, right. And in particular, there were scenes around Oscar's cafeteria. It's used to double for FBI establishments, I think, including the Quantico training area. And they actually had to put drapes up around the windows so that people couldn't see the castle and the Wallace Monument from the so there's more than just the scene, the horrific scene when when they're counting the bodies in the aircraft hangar. There was other filming done in and around Stirling for that, which people probably don't even realise.
Yes, I mean, I think in both productions there was great care taken to be as respectful as possible to the families of the victims involved in that terrible atrocity. But as a result of that, amazing to think two different productions from completely different backgrounds taking place in such a small area as Stirling, for it to take place here.
That's good. So why don't you just share with the listeners where they can get access to your book, Tom, Lights, Camera, Stirling? Whereabouts can the audience go and obtain this?
Well, people can buy it online from all good retailers. If you look on our website, extremispublishing.com, you'll be able to find details about the book and where it can be bought. It can also be purchased from independent booksellers. If you ask them to source the book from the ISBN, they'll be able to track it down for you.
Okay, but this is not the first in the series. Did you do Lights, Camera, Dundee recently as well?
Yes, that's absolutely true. Yes, the previous volume is Lights, Camera, Dundee. Another fascinating book to work on for entirely different reasons, actually, because the County of Angus actually has something very much in common with Stirling, which is an enormous range of different terrains and environments. And that's the amazing thing, because I say here in Stirling you can have filming for historical dramas, in some cases fantasy sci-fi even, but then you take a drive perhaps 2-3 miles out of the city and there are all these various different vitally important rural communities, which have all played a part in different films. You get films, for instance, like Complicity, which was filmed near Kippen, the adaptation of the Ian Banks book. You have Cullen and the Falls of Dochart, which has appeared in all sorts of films, such as Casino Royale and many others. So for that reason, it has been an absolute treasure trove. And the Dundee book was exactly the same. There's actually no crossover between the two either, which is amazing. No film featured in one that also featured in the other.
And there's maybe a trilogy in the pipeline somewhere, is there?
Well,
maybe another city somewhere near here.
Watch this space, is all I'll say.
That's great.
You never rule anything out.
Okay, so if anyone from the community out there would like to get in touch and learn a little bit more about what you do, where would the best place to go be?
Well, I have a website, tomchristiebooks.co.uk, which features all of my different books and other writing and various different events that I take part in. I'm also on LinkedIn and academia.edu, so people can contact me via those channels as well. Thanks,
Tom, for coming along and letting us know a little bit more about Lights, Camera, Stirling. Great timing and with respect to the new studio opening very, very soon. So, let's hope that we get the message out there far and wide and help you sell loads of books.
Thank you very much, Neil. And, I hope that people out there are looking at those hundreds of square miles of wonderful rural countryside, all of those wonderful communities, and, of course, the amazing history here in Stirling itself. And they're already charging up the batteries for the film cameras.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Tom.
Thank you so much for inviting me. Thanks.